The elemental plane of Earth, also known as the Anvil. While the plane of fire is probably the most dangerous of the elemental planes, the plane of Earth is the most inhospitable. It is not actively hostile, it is simply unconcerned with life. There is no air to breathe, no water to drink, or food to eat. There is only stone. You can swim through the plane of water, fly through the plane of air, and sail through the plane of fire. But the solid stone of the plane of Earth does not part for the traveler. Being here is like being pressed up against a solid stone wall. The plane of Earth is an infinite expanse of solid rock. Now, when I say rock, you might be picturing large caverns and elaborate tunnel systems, similar to what you'd find underground on the prime material plane. And while elemental pockets of air and tunnels carved and maintained by the Tao and Shad do exist, those are not natural or common. The plane of Earth is just Earth, an infinitely large block of solid stone. Most planar travelers that wind up here find themselves trapped with rock all around them, slowly crushing them to death. The exception to this is in 5th edition, where the plane actually does have a surface. It's not all underground. In 5e, the whole plane is a mountain range, meaning you can exit a cave and reach the surface of said mountains. However, there's still no air or sun. Since 5th edition is the exception, and 5th edition has little lore on this place, 99% of the info in this video will be assuming the former description, where it is all underground and solid stone. So, the plane of Earth ranges from soft soil to solid rock, and even veins of precious metals and gems. Every type of stone can be found here: gypsum, granite, marble, graphite, etc. Striations of granite, volcanic rock, and marble are interweaved with brittle crystal and crumbly chalks and sandstones. The environment is streaked with various earthy colors, such as dark greens, mud browns, and granite grays, and the whole plane smells of stone dust and damp calcium deposits. Additionally, veins of metal ores, such as iron, silver, gold, and copper, along with precious gems can be found here, all of which entice greedy explorers who usually die by crushing or the hands of the elementals who live here, as they are very attached to their home. In addition to metals and gems, the plane of Earth also holds many dangerous secrets and treasures people have stowed away here because they don't want them found, such as cursed artifacts and horrible beasts. Towards the borders of the plane of fire, the stone gets hot and eventually melts into lava as you arrive in the para-elemental plane of magma. This border region is called the Furnaces, since this is where the Tao forge most of their metalworks and the lava that seeps into the plane. The air here smells of sulfur. In the opposite direction, towards the plane of water, the stone becomes wetter, cooler, and more pliable as you enter the para-elemental plane of ooze. This border region is called the Mud Hills. The hills are constantly eroded by landslides, which the plane of Earth then regenerates. Towards the positive energy plane, you begin to see crystal and ore more frequently before arriving in the quasi-elemental plane of gems, and then towards the negative energy plane, the soil dries out and falls apart before reaching the barren lands of the quasi-elemental plane of dust. Travel. So, how do you get to the plane of Earth? Well, you obviously have the normal ways of getting to any plane, such as the doors in the city of Sigil, and spells such as Gate and Planeshift. If using Planeshift, the material component is a tuning fork made of zinc tuned to the note of A. Outside of Sigil, there are two known portals that lead to the elemental plane of Earth. One is a one-way portal from Mekis, a side effect of a giant machine bigger than multiple planets that is powered by the plane of Earth's gradual continental drift. What the purpose of this machine is a secret none have discovered, but to this day the machine still ticks in sync with the plane of Earth. The other portal is found in Phlegethos, the fourth layer of the 9 Hells of Beator. It is in the city of Abrimok and connects to Stonemire, the evil fortress of Ogremok, the prince of evil earth elementals who conspires with the pit fiend ruler of Abrimok. The key for the door is a large diamond which turns to powder upon being used, but is heavily guarded by Ogremok and the pit fiend's minions. Like all inner planes, they can be traveled to from the prime material plane via elemental vortices, which are areas where that specific element is highly concentrated. Elemental vortices to the plane of Earth are found in large concentrations of natural stone, usually the heart of a mountain, excluding volcanoes, or far beneath the surface of a prime material world, usually in areas prone to earthquakes. These ones move around with the earthquakes, but the ones in mountains are anchored in place, and can sometimes be known by dwarves, gnomes, or other subterranean races whose communities are built around its value. Obviously, if you know where you're going, you can arrange to appear in an open cave or area of some kind, but if you're being randomly manifested on the plane of Earth, it's most likely you will appear in solid Earth and then suffocate or be crushed to death. If they are trapped in an area of relatively loose soil, they can dig a 5-foot cube around themselves in about 10 minutes, but you still won't have air. Okay, so once you get to the plane, how do you travel and get to where you want to go? Moving around is the most difficult obstacle to overcome on the elemental plane of Earth. There are occasionally tunnels and caves, but most of the plane is uninterrupted solid stone. The most common method of travel is to simply enter the border ethereal and then re-enter the plane of Earth when you find a spot that you can exist in safely, such as a pocket of another element. You can use spells like Stone Shape to force open an area, or spells like Pass Wall to walk through solid material. If the soil is soft enough and you have the room to swing a pickaxe or move your hands, and you have a high enough strength score, you can mine a path. In 2nd edition, they can mine 1 foot per 10 minutes, plus an additional foot per strength score over the required minimum amount, and having proper mining tools reduce this strength requirement by 8, while in 3rd edition, one could mine 5 feet per 10 minutes. The easiest method is to hire a native elemental as a guide. They can glide through the stone and are capable of extending this ability, along with the ability to breathe earth, to anyone it touches. This ability does not involve phasing through stone, but rather is more like swimming through it. It pushes the existing earth around oneself as it fills back in once you leave. People who astral project here also gain this ability to stone glide. Guides are required for outsiders to find their way around for all the inner planes, but this is doubly true on the plane of Earth, as there are no landmarks one can use to navigate, since everything is just solid walls of stone. I know I've said the phrase solid stone a lot, but there's a theme here. So as you can see, elemental guides are extremely useful here. Just be careful they don't get distracted. Zorn, for example, will let their hunger for gems get the best of them, so if you pass a rich mineral vein with a Zorn guide, you'll never get where you're going. Without any of these, traveling involves following winding, convoluted paths of tunnels, assuming you can even find the tunnels in the first place. These pose the same dangers as exploring caves in the material plane. Properties. So first, let's discuss the physical properties of the plane of Earth. The first one is stone healing. So with the rare exception of elemental pockets, the plane of Earth is, as you know, all solid stone. When one travels here, there will almost always be entombed entirely in rock, and the plane does not tolerate gaps. It slowly regenerates stone in order to fill in any gaps, including gaps made by the presence of a creature. This pressure deals 1d2 damage per turn to anyone trapped here. Any tunnels or man-made openings are filled in with stone over the course of 1d6 days for man-sized holes, but smaller or larger ones will take more or less time to seal. There are ways to dig tunnels that don't seal themselves, but these secrets are only known by the Shad who dwell here. Next up, we have breathing. With the exception of certain elemental pockets, the plane of Earth has no air to breathe, so one needs to eliminate the need to breathe, such as by a necklace of adaptation, or by being touched by a native elemental guide, or bring/create their own air, such as by turning the soil into air via an airy earth spell. Food and water. There is no food or water naturally found here except for pockets of elemental water and a few mushroom-strewn caves, but these are all extremely rare. Most places don't have enough sunlight to grow crops, and the ever-shifting soil adds to the difficulty. The elemental natives are made of earth and are thus inedible and don't need to eat themselves, and the outsiders who dwell here, such as the Shad, have their own permanent food sources within their safely guarded communities. So a visitor exploring the plane would most likely never find food. However, spells that create food and water do function normally here. Vision and senses. There is no light on the plane of Earth, so one would need dark vision or a light source to see. 3rd edition says that there are occasionally crystals that glow as bright as candles, but most of the time it's pitch black. Additionally, most of the time a person is here, they are surrounded completely by stone or earth pressing up against them on all sides, so without X-ray vision or some way to see through solid matter, they are blind even with dark vision. Someone following a native guide will usually adopt whatever senses they have, allowing them to see through the stone for the duration of the trip. Creatures with echolocation can see once they adjust to how sound travels through the solid earth. Sound does travel very well here, to the point you can even hear someone traveling through the border ethereal or phasing through the earth, for they produce a hissing sound that can be heard within 60 feet. This distance is increased to 90 feet for exceptionally good hearers, and the natives of the plane can hear at even further distances. Gravity. In 2nd edition, the Planescape campaign setting box set states that gravity on the plane of Earth is subjective, meaning the direction it pulls from is whichever one you want it to be. If you were to run into another traveler, there are good odds you'd be standing at different orientations on the tunnel walls, but the one with the highest wisdom score, with intelligence settling ties, would override the other and force them to match the winner's gravity. However, this is contradicted by another 2nd edition source, Inner Planes, which says that scholars can't decide if there's no gravity at all, or if there is gravity, but it pulls from all directions equally. Either way, the result is the same. Crossing a big open area will require alternative means of transportation. These can be as inefficient and simple as flapping one's arms, or as expedient as a fly spell. You could also just crawl across the ground. In 3rd edition, the plane of Earth has gravity, but it is much heavier than normal gravity on the material plane. Balance, climb, jump, ride, swim, and tumble checks, along with attack rolls, suffer a -2 penalty. Item weights are effectively doubled, and fall damage is increased to 1d10 per 10 feet fallen, instead of the usual 1d6. Now let's discuss the magical properties on the plane of Earth. The magical properties from 1st edition are just pretty straightforward common sense consequences caused by the physical properties. Spells that require line of sight are impossible without the ability to see through solid earth. Spells that create stuff, such as create water or wall of iron, fill in any gaps within the solid rock. So wall of iron would resemble a vein of iron, and create water would trickle down any gaps and perhaps form a pocket of mud. In 2nd edition, as with all inner planes, conjuration spells can only summon creatures from this plane or a bordering plane. So for the plane of Earth, that would mean you could only summon creatures from the elemental plane of Earth, the para-elemental planes of ooze and magma, the quasi-elemental planes of dust and mineral, and the ethereal plane. Air, fire, and water magic are all diminished here, meaning they function as if the caster was one level lower, and spells higher than 4th level are impossible. Spell keys. So, in 2nd edition, the Planescape campaign setting had spell keys, which were ways of casting spells that let you bypass certain spell restrictions of the plane. So, spell keys for the plane of Earth are usually physical objects added to the material components, always being types of ore, minerals, or elements related to the effect of the spell. For example, a spell key to improve the effect of a fireball spell and get around the diminishing effect the plane has on the element of fire might require a fire opal to be consumed by the casting. In 3rd edition, spells and spell-like abilities that manipulate earth or stone are empowered and extended, meaning it doubles the duration and increases other numerical effects by 50%. Spells and spell-like abilities that use or create air are impeded, meaning a successful spellcraft check must be made or the spell fails. Encounters. So let's go over the various hazards you can run into on the plane of Earth. The first are elemental pockets, pockets of elements from other elemental planes that have found their way here. I normally give a brief description of each pocket, but on the plane of Earth, they don't really interact with the Earth that much. It's pretty straightforward. A pocket of air is just a big spherical cavern, a pocket of water is just a big spherical cavern but filled with water, etc. Similar to elemental pockets are gas pockets, however, these are natural to the plane as opposed to being from other ones. There are 3 types of gas pockets. Noxious, which makes one feel extremely ill, akin to a stinking cloud spell. Toxic, similar to noxious gas pockets, but they are lethal and have the same effect as a cloud kill spell. And explosive gas pockets, which have the same effect as either a noxious or toxic pocket, but they also combust if an open flame is present, dealing 8d8 damage on a failed save versus breath weapon, and has a 30% chance to trigger an earthquake twice the size of the gas pocket. Speaking of earthquakes, these are another hazard on the plane of Earth. See, the plane is constantly, gradually closing up tunnels and crushing elemental pockets out of existence. But sometimes this movement becomes sudden and swift for a brief moment, causing great tremors to ripple through the plane, normally lasting 1d10 minutes and dealing damage per turn. On a failed save, a traveler escorted by a guide gets tossed far from their guide, essentially stranding them. There are also fault lines, naturally occurring openings in the earth, usually possessing breathable air and water, either provided by a higher power or from an elemental pocket. You can stumble upon the fossils of creatures who got stuck on the plane of Earth and died. Most of these either ended up here by accident or were imprisoned by evil tyrants. However, very rarely, one of these prisoners is still alive. These are usually exceptionally powerful creatures from other planes that were entombed millennia ago because they were too powerful to destroy or contain another way. If disturbed, they often wake up, making them extremely dangerous to stumble upon. Additionally, there are metal seams, usually of gold, silver, platinum, or other precious metals, which can produce 1,000 gold pieces worth of metal per hour of digging for 4d10 hours before giving out, and then gem seams, which are small seams of valuable uncut gems producing 2d10 gems. Additionally, you can run into the consequence of a spell cast on the prime material plane. See, when a spell that summons an earth elemental is cast, it appears on the plane of Earth as a 4, 5, or 6-sided silver doorway that charms the target creature to it. If a traveler walks through one, they are summoned to the spellcaster and treated as the summoned creature, usually meaning they are bound to the will of the summoner for the duration. When someone casts Contact Other Plane, contacting a being on the plane of Earth, a silvery, angular, translucent bubble between half an inch to 9 inches in diameter appears on this plane. If it is popped, the sender's question appears in the mind of the being that broke it, but an answer can only be sent back if the being has the ability to do so. This is Future Sean with an interjection here, but if you're liking the video so far, I'd be very appreciative if you gave it a like and subscribe to the channel. Additionally, it wouldn't hurt to comment something, either something you like about the plane, something going on in your home campaign, or even a criticism about me or something you don't like about the game. Really anything, I just like having conversations. I do read all of the comments, by the way. Anyway, let's get back to the plane of Earth. Inhabitants. First, let's talk about the elementals. All elementals of the plane of Earth, not just true elementals, but all creatures native here, tend to be neutral in alignment, making them peaceful and easy to live with. Although while on the prime material plane they can be more hostile, since they know most people can't pursue them into their home plane. They are slow, dour, and stubborn, like the element they are surrounded by, and have little in common with others, caring only for earth and digging. They tend to be slow and ponderous, thinking in terms of years and centuries. Since they are made of the element that surrounds them, they blend in with the environment when staying still. Most of them are also capable of moving through Earth similar to a pass wall effect, and can extend this ability to any creature they're touching. So first we have the true elementals of the plane of Earth. These are the creatures simply called Earth Elementals in the Monster Manual. They are made of rock or crystal and take humanoid, monstrous, or animal shape, in addition to the abstract shapes commonly seen on the Prime, usually taking forms that are large, blocky, and contain many angles and sharp edges. In addition to the personality traits just mentioned, they accept gems as payment for services, which is a concrete currency and an item commonly held by adventurers, making them straightforward to work with when compared to other elementals. They are uncomfortable with open spaces and will collapse tunnels and caves. In addition to the abilities all elementals here have, Earth Elementals are immune to Earth-modifying effects, such as the spells Earthquake, Move Earth, and Stone Shape while on any inner plane. Next we have the Tao. These are the genies of the element of Earth. Like the Ifrit of the plane of fire, they are evil and feared among genie kind. They are notorious slavers who use their slaves to accrue wealth, caring nothing for the harm they inflict on others as long as they can continue to live in ostentatious cities where everything is ran by slave power. The Tao manage a great trading empire in their quest for more power, and other than the Ifrit whom they trade with, they despise the other genies and only see other elemental creatures as slaves to exploit. Wise people avoid interacting with the Tao altogether, as they often snatch any who approach them and throw them into slave pits. Like other genies, they like to use all the elements in their architecture, and they build massive cave networks that all connect to the Great Dismal Delve, their home. Within the Great Dismal Delve, each Dao citadel is located at the heart of a mazework, each consisting of 4d10 Dao and twice as many elementals and non-elemental slaves. They are each ruled by an Ataman or Hetman, advised by a Seneschal. These then report to their ruler, Kabril Ali al-Sara al-Zalazil, the Great Khan of Dao, the Fountain of Wealth, the Perfect Compass, Ottoman of the Mountain's Roots, and so on. Dao enjoy eating and drinking for the sensation of it, but they don't actually need to do either. Their warriors ride Greater Basilisk and use Zorn, Stone Giant, or Sandmen mercenaries. So even though the whole archetype of the Dao is that they are neutral evil slavers and just overall downright bastards, in the 2024 5th edition Monster Manual, there is no mention of slavery and they are neutral aligned. I'm not exactly sure why, but it seems that slavery in general has just been completely removed from the new books for some reason and some attempt to sanitize it. I don't really know. I mean, there's still other evil creatures, so I don't know why they made the Dao not evil anymore, but this is a rant for another video, so let's move on. Chagrin, also known as Soil Beast, are the elemental Grus of the plane of Earth. Grus being neutral evil elementals that are sort of like the animals of the inner planes, taking on the roles of pets, guards, and other servants. A Chagrin's natural form on their home plane is a wet, lumpy humanoid shape made of clay, while on other planes it takes the form of a yellowish hedgehog with a skull-shaped head. They are around 3 feet long and weigh between 140 to 210 pounds. They fight by burrowing in soil and then emerging, surprising the opponent and piercing them with their claws. In addition to being immune to earth-modifying spells like all earth elementals are, they actually dispel any of these spells within 40 feet of them, even permanent ones. They feed on valuable minerals and live in families that often feud. Earth Mephits are the Mephits made of earth. There's not much to say about them as they are very similar to other Mephits. They are curious, impressionable tricksters that serve more powerful creatures, have a breath weapon that spews pebbles, and can attempt to gate in another of their kind once per hour with a 25% chance of success. They don't need to eat, but enjoy eating gems, so they pursue money-making schemes for this singular goal. Next are the Galeb Door. These are animated boulders with the power to control Earth around them. They are solitary creatures, although some lived with a handful of others of their kind in communities called tumbles. Galeb Doors would take up territory either in the plane of Earth or mountainous regions of the Prime and become bound to their region. They enjoy making music, which consisted of extremely low, subsonic tones produced by their gravelly voices. Kargra. These are essentially earth fish. They are 3 to 4 feet long, conical in shape, and have what resembles scales and fins. What sets them apart is their 3 arms that conceal themselves in sheaths near their eyes. Although their artwork varies significantly, so some of them look way more alien than others. They swim through the earth, riding geological movements like a fish rides water currents, all the while their iris-like mouths draw in earth, digesting the necessary elements and expelling the rest. This waste expulsion then propels the Kargra forward, leaving a trail of softer earth within the solid rock. Unlike many of the natives on the plane of Earth, Kargra are completely natural creatures. They can be hurt by non-magical weapons and hatch from eggs. They grow to maturity on the plane of Earth and then travel to the quasi-plane of Mineral in their old age, but no one knows what happens to them there. They feed on high-grade ores, and see refined metals, such as those worn as armor or wielded as weapons by adventurers, as delicacies, but do not care for flesh. A dead Kargra always has 1d6 times 100 gold pieces of valuable minerals in its gullet. Next we have Petch. Petch are small, thin creatures with pale, yellowish skin and red or reddish-brown hair, and enjoy working stone in dark places deep underground. So they seem fairly similar to deep gnomes, except Petch are native to the elemental plane of Earth. They are good-aligned, peaceful creatures that wish to be left alone. Sandlings. Sandlings are composed of silicates and resemble piles of sand, but if stepped on, they lunge upwards, trapping their targets inside their sandy bodies, and they form a tendril shape which they can use to slash their foes. They have no society and claim territories with borders only known to them, which they defend fiercely. They live on minerals and despise organic matter, moving away from the corpses of slain mortals. They grow up to 10 feet in diameter and then bud, splitting off thousands of 2-inch long baby sandlings. If at least 10 gallons of water are poured on a sandling, they suffer the effects of a slow spell and its attack damage is halved. Next, we have Sandmen. Sandmen are humanoid bipedals made entirely out of sand. They tend to get enslaved by the Tao, but then told they can earn their freedom by capturing slaves from the material plane. Their ability to put creatures to sleep makes them great at capturing mortals alive. When slain, they crumble to dust, which can be used to craft potions of dreaming or sands of truth, and if used as the material component for a sleep spell, doubles the normal number of levels or hit dice. Because human mages are the ones usually slaying them for their components, they despise humans and attack them on sight. Coming within 20 feet of a Sandman requires a save versus magic or you will fall asleep. Those who succeed must save again each time they touch or are touched by the Sandman. Once asleep, a victim stays asleep for at least 3 turns. Keep in mind a turn in AD&D is 10 rounds or 10 minutes, and then has a cumulative 10% chance per turn to wake up. This chance goes to 95% if violently disturbed. Once a Sandman's foe is asleep, they will normally leave them to doze, inflicting no further harm upon them. Zorn. Zorn look less like elementals and more like aliens. They're super bizarre looking. They have wide bodies with 3 legs, arms, and eyes evenly spaced apart, with a big mouth at the top. Their whole body is made for burrowing. They are intelligent and usually peaceful on their home plane, normally consisting of small societies of mineral gatherers. They wander around eating veins of minerals, which leaves behind empty gaps other creatures often take up residence in. Zaren are relatives of Zorn, looking almost the same but smaller and shinier, almost metallic looking. They crave specifically magical metal as food. They demand handouts of magical metals and attack if denied. If attacked by a magical weapon, they can attempt an attack roll to take a bite out of the weapon, forcing the weapon to make a save versus crushing blow or be destroyed. Animals. So there are very few animals that live on the plane of Earth. The only ones recorded to live here are giant ants, worms, moles, mice, and a few other burrowing creatures. Monsters. The non-elementals that make their primary home here are the Shad and the Horde. So the Shad are humanoids that live on the plane of Earth, and while they are essentially considered natives now, they technically aren't native to the plane. See, a group of druids on a prime material world called Verdorth knew of the Beastlands, the outer plane dedicated to animals, and they wished to create a version of that but for plants. They use their powerful magic to form giant caverns within the plane of Earth, brought in water from the plane of water and sunlight from the quasi-plane of radiance, creating lush gardens that created unique and strange plants. One day, an unknown force slaughtered all of these druids. However, the monstrous 1,000-foot trees within the druids' grove were inhabited by tiny gray-skinned humanoids with short hair and large eyes. No one knows where they came from, and not even the druids knew they existed. As the plants died, these creatures fled them, living in the cavernous grottos and adopting the plane of Earth as their home. These are the Shad. Considered as outlanders, vermin, and enemies by most natives of the plane of Earth, the Shad are quite intelligent, possessing their own language, wearing many earrings, and decorating their simple clothes with beautiful gems. They are incredibly hardy and adaptive, capable of surviving on this harsh plane where everyone here wants to kill them. They're not aggressive, but unlikely to help strangers. Given the hostilities of the natives, they believe everyone is out to get them. They survive on plants and fungus their druids created, which are then maintained by water that leaks in from the elemental plane of water. Additionally, they will eat the dead of edible creatures they come across, even their own kind. They have short life expectancies and leave signs on locations to label places for later generations. And the last species on the elemental plane of Earth is the Horde, an insect-like race on the plane of Earth. Each individual horde is made up of hundreds of smaller insect-like creatures, all connected via a hive mind. They communicate telepathically and share the same mind and name. The bodies of one horde all look similar, but each horde can vary significantly in appearance, from golden prey mantises to black beetles with glowing red antennae. The individual bodies vary in length from 3 to 21 feet, directly correlating to how many hit dice they have. The horde is capable of telepathy and telekinesis, not to mention being immune to mental assaults. One is only destroyed when every single body is killed. If one survives, it will flee and rebuild its bodies at a rate of 1 per turn. They can control bodies in a 100-mile radius. Outside that, an individual body will become mindless and die in 1d10 days. The hordes do not consider any other life forms intelligent, even other hordes, and have no compunctions against destroying others, attacking whenever it is in its own best interests. They take over large regions, destroy all life in their path, and are enemies of everything that lives on the elemental plane of Earth. Other. Outside of the elementals and the various animals and other native monsters, you can also find dwarves and deep gnomes here, given their affinity for underground dwellings and mining. The deep gnomes in particular get along well with most of the natives and defend each other against the Dao. It is said that while the Svirfneblin have cities on the Prime, their true cities are here, rivaling even those of the Dao in size and magnificence. You also have giants, cyclopes, fomorians, dragons, basilisks, cockatrices, dragons, medusae, and other creatures fond of stone and underground spaces. There is also at least one community of Neogi that eat anybody that interferes with them. Powers. So what mighty powers make the plane of Earth their home? First, let's discuss the Archomentals. So first we have Ogremok, one of the princes of elemental evil, specifically the prince of evil earth creatures. He is known as the Stone Tyrant and the Master of Black Earth. He plots evil schemes and wanders the anvil in search for subjects to intimidate, slaves to command, and new opponents to challenge. Fear of his appearance pervades all of the plane. They say he searches for the rise of a mighty villain, a being of unrivaled wickedness and energy, which he will carve into a juggernaut of evil and use to slay his hated rival, Sunnis. He tends to focus on long-term problems, like the potential erosion of his citadel, rather than more pressing matters. People see him as confused and slow because of this strange motivation that leads to unpredictable actions. However, he will kill anyone who challenges him quickly, but only after he is determined they are of no future use to him. Ogremok has a proxy named Caliph, a dwarf warrior priest from a world of earth and fire, who Ogremok believed was this instrument of evil he searched for. He tested the dwarf to see if it was him, but unfortunately for the Archomental, Caliph was found wanting. This testing gave Caliph great power, but Ogremok cast him aside anyways. The dwarf blames himself for his failure, and now seeks solace in enacting endless violence and destruction in Ogremok's name. The other Archomental is Sunnis, or is it Sunis? I couldn't find a pronunciation guide for this one. Anyway, she is the princess of good earth creatures. She takes the form of a tall, muscular woman chiseled from stone. She is a being of mercy and understanding who does not crave power and thus does not concern herself with amassing followers. While not in her realm of Sandfall, she travels the anvil in search of exotic creatures, worthy heroes, and items of great value. It is said that anyone who brings her a truly unique treasure will find a special place in her heart and win a powerful boon. What this boon is, no one knows, but considering the power Sunnis commands, it could be quite magnificent. So that is all the Archomentals. Now let's discuss the gods. First we have Grumbar, the god of the element of earth and the master of all neutral aligned earth elementals. As Sunnis and Ogremok wage their eternal battle over supremacy of the plane, Grumbar idly watches by, occasionally lending aid to one side to balance it out. Only those granted an audience have ever found him, and the stories say this is because his giant-sized body is a part of the plane itself, blending in seamlessly except for a small portion which is distinguishable. Those granted audiences are entered into a pocket of air with a mile-high rock wall, which is where Grumbar's face materializes, taking on a different form for each person. He never bargains, so people who meet with him should agree to his terms or decline and never return. The other god on the plane of Earth is Geb, the Egyptian god of earth, miners, mines, and mineral resources. Unlike most of his pantheon, Geb has decided not to live in Heliopolis on Arcadia. Instead, he lives in a vast labyrinthine series of caverns called the Caverns Under the Stars. He is described as a good-natured fellow who takes interest in the affairs of his worshippers and petitioners, despite his alignment being neutral. Shu, another Egyptian god, has been commanded to keep Geb away from his bride, Nut. Anyone who can bring him news of Nut would be treated as an honored guest by Geb. Geb employs a proxy named Hatshepsut as his servant and agent in the world of mortals. She is as loyal as can be, and is said to be the first mortal to ever arrive in the elemental plane of Earth, and was transformed into the powerful proxy she is today as a reward. She is a slender, almost frail-looking woman, but wields a magical flail that casts the earthquake spell on each strike, and her dusty skin is as hard as granite. She is a neutral good level 12 half-elf fighter. Now, the third letter of her name is a P, Hatshepsut. However, Hatshepsut, with a T as the third letter, was a real Egyptian pharaoh in the 15th century BC, that I'm assuming this proxy was based after. It's unlikely it's the same person because, as far as I'm aware, the planet Earth doesn't have half-elves. Locations. The first and probably the most important location on the plane of Earth is the Great Dismal Delve, the home of the Tao, the evil slaver genies of the plane of Earth. This is where all Tao live, including their Great Khan. It is a gargantuan cave system bigger than a continent on the prime material plane, and is said to be so maddening it will confuse any visitor, but the Tao have them memorized. While Tao can pass through stone, and don't necessarily need a cave system to connect their homes, their slaves can't, and so they use these to transport them. The Tao population is large, but even larger is the population of elementals and elemental kin that serve them, and the non-native slaves who toil ceaselessly to expand their domain, mine gems, and fend off invaders. The Great Dismal Delve consists of mazework citadels, each ruled by minor nobles and built around an elemental pocket which flavors the architecture and life of that region. It is lined with glowing crystals, and they also grow luminous fungus here to feed their slaves. It also links up with an array of portals. Some lead to other inner planes, others to underground sections of some outer planes, and then also some that lead to the deepest dungeons of the material plane. They say there is a portal to almost any secret location in the multiverse. This rumor is perpetuated by the Tao to encourage travelers. At the center of the delve is the Tao's capital city, which surrounds the Khan's palace, called the Sevenfold Mazework. At least according to 2nd edition. The 5th edition says that the Sevenfold Mazework is just another name for the Great Dismal Delve, and the capital city is instead called the City of Jewels. 3rd edition then refers to the Great Dismal Delve as the Great Mazework, which seems to just be a combination of both words, so it kind of seems to be doing the same thing 5e is doing. So yeah, it gets confusing between the editions, but just like earlier, I will be sticking with the 2nd edition description for most of the information in this section. Anyways, the Sevenfold Mazework is a truly immense and majestic fortress which is said to connect every mazework within the Great Dismal Delve, which the Tao use to transport their slaves. Pockets of every element, para-element, and quasi-element can be found in the delve. With all of these resources at the Khan's disposal, along with connections to the Great Market and forges of the Sevenfold Market, the Great Khan of the Tao is one of the most powerful beings in the plane. Every building within the city is composed of precious stones and metals, and most buildings are topped with gemstone inlaid spires. The Khan lives in his secret palace, the hidden fulcrum of the Tao, where he plots evil schemes to acquire more wealth and treasure. Rumors say a magical rune marks all treasure in the Sevenfold Mazework as property of the Great Khan, and that thieves are punished with death. The free market is a market in the city that offers basically all goods that can be purchased anywhere in the multiverse, but it consists mostly of slave traders selling their slaves. For the right price, one can buy any creature and the means to command it. Within the Great Dismal Delve is the Iron Crucible, a fiery mountain of molten metal that links the Sevenfold Mazework to the elemental plane of fire. The Ifrit and Tao both use it to trade between them, the Ifrit usually buying slaves, and the Tao buying precious metals, gems, or magic. The next location is the Fiery Cascade, a Tao citadel located between two pockets of elemental fire, which have been tapped to construct a three-dimensional network of flaming moats that keep unwanted visitors out. Stonemire, the realm of the archomental Ogrimmok, the prince of evil earth elementals. It lies within a cavern near the border of the paraplane of magma, and it is an immense fortress on a giant plateau where it thrusts upwards into the largest pocket of vacuum on the plane of Earth. It is intensely hot here, and its environment consists of molten stone, searing smoke clouds, and geysers of scalding steam. The plateau it sits on is said to contain the bodies of those who ran afoul of the Archomental and were buried or entombed within. Sandfall, the realm of Sunnus, the princess of good earth creatures. It is a fortress in a cavern beneath a perpetually falling column of sand, which eventually drains into a bottomless pit. Some say the sand comes from the quasi-elemental plane of dust as a gift from a suitor. Rumors say the heart of Sandfall is built around a 50-foot wide crystal which gleams with blinding light. These rumors clash on the nature of this crystal, saying it is either the heart of a star, the finest gem ever gleaned from the quasi-plane of mineral, or the source of all earthly magical power. The next location is the Aviary. The Aviary is a 15-mile diameter pocket of elemental air, where a colony of winged elves, called the Avarial, have built a beautiful open-planned airy city. Visitors can purchase or rent a pair of wings that allow them to fly like a bird. The pressure and omnidirectional gravity of the plane makes the Aviary effectively a place without any gravity at all, which makes flying easy. The Cavern Under the Stars, the divine realm of Geb, the Egyptian god of earth, miners, mines, and mineral resources. It is a vast, pyramidal chamber 30 miles on a side. The upper half of the cavern is shrouded in a night sky complete with twinkling stars, a gift from his wife and sister, Nut. On the bottom of the chamber lies a sprawling city of beautiful stone buildings and temples. Geb's palace is in the exact center of the realm, surrounded by a circular river of pure, sweet water. Also at the center is a portal to Elysium, where Nut resides, but Geb has kept its location a secret. Some believe the god Shu discovered and destroyed the portal long ago. Here, travelers can find anything one would find in an open-air market, but Geb, as a being of hospitality and friendship, does not tolerate outright swindlers. The petitioners who worshipped Geb and find their afterlife here take on 3 forms. The most worthy of them take the form of stars that twinkle above, while others are flashing gems lining the walls. Most of them, however, are dark-skinned, black-haired people who are considered very friendly and willing to help travelers as long as they behave themselves. Other. So there are some locations that get named but never described in any detail. But if you know something I don't, feel free to tell me in the comments. The Planescape campaign setting box set in the DM's Guide to the Planes booklet, page 29, mentions a place called the Pale River, but I don't know what it is. Page 39 of Inner Planes mentions the great cities of Ryantir na Mekis, a city of mostly humans, and Tathalia, a city of mostly dwarves and gnomes. And page 89 of the 5.5 edition Monstrous Manual mentions a place in the Great Dismal Delve called the Strait of Magnets. Besides those named locations, you can find fortresses wizards hide here, trading posts that sell iron gems and other things mined from the plane, enemies banished here by emperors, and evil artifacts sequestered here by paladins. And that is all of the information I could find on the elemental plane of Earth. There are other creatures that you can find here that I didn't include because the inhabitant section was just so long and there's just so many monsters in D&D throughout all the editions, but I tried to include the most notable, most important ones that I could find. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and remember to subscribe for more D&D content.